What is the biggest lever they can pull with the least amount of effort? And if they can do that one thing between the next 6 months, when you see them again, then you can give them a second piece of information. Getting someone to chew a delicious gum is often an easier lever to pull than to get them to floss every day.
What's up, dental peeps? It's your girl Irene here with Tooth or Dare podcast. Hold on to your suction, it's about to get slippery.
Welcome back, peeps, to another episode of the Tooth or Dare podcast. I'm joined for part 2 with Monica and Donald Bailey, the founders of Epic Dental. In part 1, we talked about your family business, how you are including your kids now in the development of your product, how you met, how you decided that you wanted to work together as non-dental people to now really focus on how to prevent cavities, the general public. So let's talk about the concept of Epic Dental. I know the history of, you worked with a different developer, you developed a different product line, and now have taken that science into Epic Dental. How are you using this in dentistry now? What are you seeing as the evolution of the product, and how are you really focusing it to dental professionals to help our patients?
Yeah, for sure. So I think dental professionals have a limited amount of time to talk to their patients about the things that they can really do to help them. There's treatments that you can offer in office that make a lot of sense for patients, and you should absolutely do. But we all know the game of cavities is won and lost in the day-to-day choices that your patients are making. So many of them struggle to make consistent, good diet and hygiene decisions, right? And so a lot of people have been like, what do I do to support that? How do I help them get better? And it's hard to get them to stop maybe sipping on soda all day, but it is pretty easy to get them to chew a gum after they've sipped on their soda. And so what we did was when we envisioned the Epic line, we said, how do we integrate xylitol in so patients can get it throughout the day? Not only to ensure that they get an optimal dosage of at least 6 grams to work on the bacteria in their mouth, but so that maybe they can use it to buffer against acid attacks that happen after they consume normal things. How can we get it to them in the moments where maybe they don't have a toothbrush convenient and it doesn't make sense to use their toothbrush so that they can still suppress the bacteria, buffer the acid, and get the saliva redepositing minerals on their teeth. So that's kind of the whole concept, was build a line around what works with their day to day. So we put it in gum, mints, toothpaste, and mouthwash to start. Originally, we didn't have fluoride in any of our toothpaste versions. We're going to go kind of the anti-fluoride route because a lot of people are like, what do we want to do about fluoride? We recognize that that didn't always work for dental professionals. Lots of dental professionals are big fans of fluoride. And so we pretty quickly said, okay, we'll bring a fluoride version in as well, where we combine the fluoride and the xylitol so you can get an added benefit. But since then, the product line has largely remained stable. It's still gum, mints, toothpaste, and mouthwash. And what we've done is expand out the flavor options so that we get broader appeal to more and more consumers who need it. And that's what we've got today: gum, mints, toothpaste, and mouthwash that are super easy to use. We don't put any garbage ingredients or chemical concoctions like aspartame, asulfame, potassium, things that you see in mainstream gums that may prolong the flavor, but have at least some questions raised by the science that's out there. We want to focus on things that can really deliver results for them and products that we use ourselves. And so that's what we built the line on. And then we initially marketed it through dental professionals. I'd go in and do lunch and learns at offices. I had a business partner at the time when I started. He flew out to California and was doing several lunch and learns, calling on dental offices, detailing the offices. We quickly learned that offices were great at sharing our message, but we're never great retailers for the product. So originally we were like, hey, buy the product and sell it from your office to the patient. And I'd sell maybe $700 or $1,000 worth of product to the office, and I'd come back a month later and all of it was still on the shelf. Yeah. They hadn't adapted their protocols. They hadn't done anything to move it. And in fact, they didn't want to sell product. Dentists are really good at the work that they do, right? They can drill and fill, they know but they're not salespeople. They don't even know how to sell their services in a lot of cases. So it was an opportunity for me to be like, how can we flip the script here? What can we do? And that's when we realized we needed to use the dental professionals to educate the consumer, and we needed to find ways to make the product available. When we first started the business, Amazon really wasn't a thing. You couldn't just put the product out there for people to get. So it's like, hey, I want to recommend it. Is there a pharmacy near your office you want to send them to? And then it's picking up the phone and calling them to get it on the pharmacy shelf, and then hoping that it sells through the pharmacy or the health food store that's near them. And you start to build some symbiotic relationships where the dentist refer and the retailer sells, and maybe the retailer's like, oh yeah, if you want to learn more, you can go talk to this dentist. But it was such a long road to hoe that way. It was rough. And so when we realized, oh, Amazon and direct to consumer education could supplement what we were already doing with dental professionals, we really turned to organic social content and have used that to grow the business, where we do a lot of the education there. I've done lunch and learn CE courses for dentists for 20 years now. So I'm well aware of the science, the changes in the science, the new information that comes out. And it's great to channel that to a dental professional because they can educate. But a lot of times consumers just want a simple message.
Yeah. Let's go back to the science a little bit and talk about dosage for children versus dose for adults, max dose. And you did mention about, keeping your ingredients simple.
Mhm.
Where does xylitol come from? I mean, we all know it's a derivative of the birch tree, but where do people like you who are producing a product get xylitol from? And how do you decide what that dose should be? I mean, I've read some studies that have said anywhere between 5 to 10 milligrams is what's recommended to reduce the caries risk. And you also mentioned that you have a product that incorporates fluoride in it. So at what point do you decide how much fluoride, how much xylitol, what type of xylitol, where do you get it from? And then how is that all bundled together to give us the most caries reductive product?
Can we go with this?
Yeah, go.
Okay. So I just
Like,
want to give her a chance.
Who are we
'cause we're
tagging
talking.
in for this one? We could do a part 1 and a part 2 for both of
Right.
your answers.
Yeah. So xylitol comes from fibrous plant material typically. So it was initially discovered in birch trees. People don't typically get it from birch trees. In our case, we get it from a non-GMO corn. So we take, and our products have, many of them have the non-GMO product verification on there because we've gone through the process of being like, hey, we really want to make sure that we're getting the purest, cleanest ingredient. We extract from that pharmaceutical grade xylitol. So there's food grade, pharmaceutical grade. That's really just a question of the purity, like how much of it is xylitol and how much of it is what they call other reducing sugars. So we're looking for something that's at least 99% pure xylitol. There's nothing else in it. Typically, our assays show 99.5%, for example, of pure xylitol.
What is food grade at its percentage? So that's the
It's
stuff
probably
that we tell people to
95%
make
xylitol.
muffins with. So it's close.
Yeah, it's probably 95% xylitol.
Okay.
So it's still pretty much xylitol, but there are other reducing sugars that come out of the process of extracting that xylitol. So we put that pharmaceutical grade xylitol in all of our products, and we get it from non-GMO corn. And what you're looking for is you're looking to get 6 grams a day in total. And it's fine for kids and adults at this level. What happens is we're looking for probably 2 grams 3 times a day. I like to get the xylitol exposure immediately following meal, snack, or soda, some kind of thing that's
Acidic.
presented an acid
Right.
challenge, right? So you're dipping down on your acid. You're dipping down in your pH. You're getting more acid in your mouth. And what you want to do is get that xylitol to wake up your saliva really quickly. It's sweet. Sweet's necessarily going to get your saliva flowing. Like that's how your body's built. When something's sweet there, it produces the saliva. When you chew, it also produces saliva. So you're really trying to get that. I want to get both of those working in conjunction together to get the xylitol and spread it across the mouth. You want to leave it in for at least 5 minutes. So what we're looking for is that exposure 3 times a day, 5 minutes, 2 grams. If you get that in, you're going to really see a meaningful drop in the strep mutans. As the strep mutans go down, you get a lot less acid production and you set yourself up to build a healthier oral flora. And that's really what we're trying to accomplish with the products when we get them in front of people.
Does xylitol at all affect this on a cellular level? Strep mutants, does it interfere with its cell wall or its colonization? Does it do anything to the bug itself?
No, what happens is, so this is the theory on the mechanism of action. They've done a number of studies, but I'll give you kind of their best view of what occurs. The strep mutans preferentially select the xylitol over other carbohydrates as a source that they would want to digest. They lack the enzymes to break it down. So they absorb it in and then they expel it. In the process, they spend ATP. So they're actually using energy, and then they're expelling a waste product that doesn't include acid at that point, and they keep reabsorbing it when it's present. So they basically starve themselves to death when xylitol is present in sufficient quantity because they don't end up consuming other carbohydrates. For some reason, they tend to select that one first, and then they just die off. So it's not directly toxic to them. It doesn't interfere with their cell membrane. It's not causing them to die off directly. It's causing them to starve by choice.
Interesting.
Well, and
And
I think it's such a great strategy versus, a lot of people, if they use like an alcohol-based mouthwash and they're just killing all the bacteria, it's so problematic because you're getting rid of those healthy bacteria that you need. And so when you can selectively starve off strep mutans, and then those healthy strains can kind of fill in that space and create competition there, I think that's just such a better way to go than, the other things that people have used in the past.
so tell me about now the combination of fluoride and xylitol. How is it the same dose of xylitol, the 5 grams? And then how does it work on the fluoridation side? It's obviously sodium fluoride, not stannous fluoride.
Yeah, what we use a sodium fluoride in our toothpaste, I believe. I have to pull that up and look. We've
Yes.
changed.
And
It's been a minute.
tricalcium phosphate.
What's that?
You do, and a tricalcium phosphate.
Yes, and we do use a tricalcium phosphate. You're right. So what we're looking at with our fluoride product is we're doing the max OTC dose that you can do, right? We want to give you that full dose that we're allowed to do without it becoming a prescription product of fluoride. Now, what fluoride does is it interferes with how calcium and phosphate bond so that they become more acid resistant when they bond together. It can, in theory, also impact the bacteria directly, although I don't think it does enough to matter there. I think really what we're looking for is to use fluoride to make the teeth more acid resistant, if that's your preferred strategy for that, and then go after the bacteria. So one's like I'm going to set up a defense. I'm going to make myself stronger against acid, and the other is to go on the offense against the root cause of the acid, which are the strep mutans. So if you really can do both simultaneously, you can anticipate pretty good results. And that's what we've seen from patients that use it. Now, most toothpaste are about 40% sweetener by content. Most people don't realize like, oh, you've got a lot of sorbitol going in there. What we've done is we've replaced that sweetener with xylitol. So we're using a high content xylitol toothpaste, and we're not putting a bunch of other things into that toothpaste. We're just like loading it up with xylitol as a sweetener to make it effective for folks. And that's when you can really start to see results with depressing the strep mutans. But if you're just using a toothpaste to get there, the reality is you're probably not going to get rid of strep mutans well enough that you're going to see the impact you want. You've really got to put in a gum or a mint multiple times throughout the day to hit that 6 grams a day threshold to really get those strep mutans to fall.
And your mouth rinses, are they also dual? So do they also have xylitol and fluoride? Or is it strictly xylitol?
Just strictly xylitol. So it's just one more opportunity to expose your teeth to xylitol. There's not, we don't offer fluoridation, a fluoride version. I do know some people that recommend, so I have a dentist that she promotes xylitol. She loves xylitol. She's one of our early customers. And she basically said, I want you to use an acid-based, something like Listerine on your teeth. Because a lot of people don't realize Listerine's highly acidic.
Yeah.
And she's like trying to do an acid etch. She's like, so you immediately do Listerine and then you follow that with like an Act fluoride rinse because you're going to do an acid etch and then you're going to deposit the fluoride on. And that's what she recommends. And then she's like, and then you want to follow it up with a xylitol rinse to go after the bacteria. That's not how we do it. I don't think most people want to do 3 rinses, right?
Well, and I think that's where things get really tricky is if you're looking at patient compliance, like I feel like that's the biggest uphill battle that any dentist or hygienist is facing. And so if you can get something that is convenient and easy to use, they don't have to think super hard, they don't have a bunch of steps, and it tastes good, then it's just so much easier to get the results you want. So, I mean, you can do something really complex that's probably better, or you can do something that has high patient compliance because it tastes good and it's just part of their normal routine and there's no extra steps because they just swap their toothpaste for a better one and they swap their, gum for a better one. And it's just easy to get them to do what they need to do.
Cool. Do you have any studies or anything that you want me to link below? Like people are often clicking on the show notes, so I'll include any
Yeah.
of that below. Any parting words of wisdom for dental professionals that work in one of those offices that just are doing, and I hate to say the bare minimum, but the bare
Mhm.
minimum. I mean, I own my own practice, and uniquely I'm a restorative hygienist. I have the availability to stock whatever I want to stock, sell whatever I want to sell. And you're right, my shelves are not packed with products because of how difficult it is to be that salesperson. So Amazon is my best friend, and I've curated Amazon carts that I text to my patients for them to be able to buy whatever I'm recommending, or choose your own adventure. I have one that's a fluoride free and one that's fluoridated, and you want to be you want to be able to provide people things in their price point and also what we believe to be scientifically most proven. But what would you say to someone that doesn't have the luxury of making their own decisions? How could they use your website or your brand or your support to share things with their patients?
I mean, I think the way that you're doing it is really the best way is to kind of say, okay, where can I have the most impact? And so you don't have to sell product. You don't have to try and push that because I think that's uncomfortable for most people unless you have a sales personality. And so really saying, where am I strongest? And as a dental professional, you have all of the education and background to understand the science behind cavities and what's going on and where they really need help. And so I think finding opportunities to have small conversations that point the patient in the right direction of tools that can help them and helping them understand the why behind why that is going to make a big difference for them, can go so far. And those conversations can happen in 30 seconds or it can happen, in 10 minutes while you're doing a cleaning. And that's where I think hygienists are so powerful because they have more of that face time with the patient while they're doing the cleaning. And that patient doesn't have a whole lot to do, they're bored. So their mind is wide open and ready to be educated. And I think that is one of the best times you can do that. And so if you kind of share, okay, here's kind of what I'm seeing, and I want to get you the best results possible. So here's, one or two things that I would recommend. And you give them a little nugget of wisdom every time they're in your chair and they leave with that knowledge and they can act on that. And so if you say, hey, they're a high risk person for cavities, they have a history of cavities, suggesting something like, hey, I think if you integrated a xylitol gum or mint into your routine, you'd be getting way better results. And that is going to lower your dental bill. That's going to lower the pain you have to experience with getting a filling. It's going to be beneficial to you for these reasons. You can just go on Amazon and search xylitol gum if you want. I'll write it down, when I'm done, so you know how to spell the word xylitol. You can
Mhm.
just kind of share a quick piece of information. And so I think to keep it simple and to give them a call to action that is easy for them to do, but is going to be the most high leverage thing they can do. And so I think not bombarding them with here's 20 different ideas because they're not ready to act on that. But what is the biggest lever they can pull with the least amount of effort? And if they can do that one thing between the next 6 months, when you see them again, then you can give them a second piece of information. So I've seen that work really, really well with people. And I think getting someone to chew a delicious gum is often an easier lever to pull than to get them to floss every day because it's
Yeah.
hard to get people interested in.
I would add to it, the more you can share feedback or results that have come from someone else, that
Mhm.
almost testimonial based. Like I had a patient that struggled like you did with cavities for these reasons. I gave them some product and they came back with their last visit and I've never seen their teeth be so clean.
Mhm.
It's almost like people can grab onto that and be like, maybe that could be me. Maybe I could get that same result.
They need that hope to believe that it could actually work for them.
Yeah. I have I'm obsessed with laminated resources. So for those that follow me on Instagram, they know that I give those away for free. Everything that I do in my operatory gets put into either a flow chart or a decision making chart. And one of the charts that I have laminated is from the Academy of Pediatric Dentistry. And they have a really great chart that allows us to describe, based on science and research, what's being recommended for patients of a certain age bracket. And obviously, it's kids, so they end at 16. And I think above 16 is considered an adult. But one of the inclusions is xylitol. So over the age of, I think it's 3 on their chart, it says that, for moderate to high risk caries, xylitol is the inclusion. So it helps me when discussing frequencies. I mean, everyone is so
Mhm.
insurance driven at this point that when I advise a 5-year-old to come in every 3 months because of their caries risk, parents are always like, well, my insurance isn't going to cover that. So,
Right.
I go based on the decision makers, right? The
Mhm.
Academy of Pediatric Dentistry, and on the perio side, the AAP. So I use this chart and I say, I totally get that. And your insurance is usually going to cover the least amount of anything, mostly a preventative plan. But when we get into these more comprehensive cases, they're not going to always cover it. So I often will either text it to them or get them to take a photo of the chart, and I'll circle in permanent marker on the sheet where their child falls. And then it's a decision that they're making. So it's no
Yeah.
longer I'm not the one at fault because I didn't tell them what, science is saying. Now it's up to them to either decline or accept the treatment. And I'm not
Mhm.
the one just making it up out of my head, because I feel like a lot of hygienists feel that way, where a patient will be, well, tell me why. Well, tell me why. And they're like,
Mhm.
really forceful in
Right.
in picking your brain and poking at you to see if there's any holes in your story, because for some reason we're just trying to sell treatment. So having a resource like that, and I'll link that below, which is really helpful. Just saying, like, I didn't make this up. This is what science is telling us, and this is the recommendation, and you can choose your own adventure and which delivery method you choose. And it also does the same thing with dental sealants. Like, we seem to forget that adults should also probably have dental sealants at some point if their caries risk spikes. And using there's this argument about biomimetic dentistry, and I've done a bunch of episodes on biomimetic dentistry and selecting products that mimic the composition of tooth and enamel, instead of simply just using a resin fill and using something that will absorb fluoride from natural sources. It's like, well, patients will tell us, I don't want any fluoride. It's like, great. Well, do you drink water? Because most of the drinking water is fluoridated, and we can argue that. What about broccoli? Do you eat fish? Certain fish that swim closer to the surface of the water have more fluoridation in them. So it's using natural sources that also replenish the teeth. So I'll link some of those resources below, and you can download them from my
Yeah.
personal Instagram, for those that are listening. If you need, some backup, it's kind of that.
Mhm.
We're healthcare
One
people.
other thing
Yeah.
that we've seen work really, really well in I think to kind of back up and support this, the study, I forget which university it was. We could get you the link for the study, but they looked at pregnant women chewing xylitol gum, compared against a control. I'm sure you
Mm,
read that, but it was incredible to see kind of what the results were with their children that never even chewed xylitol gum, and to see how much better off they were when you get the mom's microbiome the way that it should be, and to get that really healthy, because when she's passing that off to her newborn as they're building their flora, that can have a huge impact. And so, one of the things, just as you were talking about starting xylitol at 3, we are actually big fans of starting before that. And we've got a product that
yeah.
we acquired and brought into our line a couple of years ago that was developed by a pediatrician because he saw horrible dental caries in infants. And he's like, why is this happening? This is just insane that we're already at this level of decay at that age. We've got to do something. And this was about 20 years ago that he developed this product. It's called Spiffies. And so we've got this as part of it. And this is a great way when these kids are building their oral flora, to start kind of controlling and weeding out strep mutans as early as possible. If you feel like you have family members that have had cavities, that's going to get passed on to them because people share straws, they share spoons, like it's just
Yeah.
kind of inevitable. So it's just a little wipe. So before they even have teeth erupting through the gum surface, if you can use this wipe, it kind of helps them get prepared for teeth brushing because they start to feel comfortable with a routine like that. It's a great routine building product, but it also has a xylitol solution that is killing off those strep mutans. And so it's amazing as an introductory product. And I think the earlier you start those habits, the easier that patient compliance is when they're kids and they're not wanting to brush their teeth.
That's cool. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for sharing your product info and your journey with us. This was really helpful. I'll link all of your product information below. And if anyone wants to reach out to you, I encourage you to check them out on Instagram. You do some really great videos, and little tidbits of why and how. I really like your videos, Donald. Those are really great. So I'll share
Thank
the
you.
info below. And until next time, peace out, peeps.